So here's why we are working on rationalizing the denominator. You can maybe already see where this is going. So my hypotenuse is square root of 65. And in these problems, we're trying to find just the trig ratio. So no solving for a side or an angle. We just want to write down cosine of A. So cosine of A is SOHCAHTOA, right? Adjacent over hypotenuse. A is here. So adjacent is going to be next to. Hypotenuse is the hypotenuse, the longest side, right? So we say cosine of A equals 4 over square root of 65. And if you watched the last video and you did the last set of problems, you know exactly what to do with this now. So I'm going to multiply by my fancy form of 1, which is going to look like this. I picked 65, square root of 65, because that's going to rationalize my denominator. Put square root of 65 on top because it needs to be equal to 1, this fraction. 4 over 65 times square root of 65 is what we get, which is nice. We would want to simplify this if we could, but 65 is 13 times 5, which does not factor any further than that. So we'll leave it alone just like this. This is our final result, and this is equal to cosine of A. Okay. So the reason we studied rationalizing is so we could come back to these trig functions and write them in a nice way, that the way mathematicians like to write it. Notice, like, it makes sense that we had a square root as one of our sides, because let's say we had started with just 7 and 4, we would have gotten this side by Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so that's why these roots come up so often with these triangles. We'll do just one more. If you finish the last set of problems, you're going to cruise through these. So here's another one. We have the tangent of A this time. So tangent of A, SOHCAHTOA, is opposite over adjacent, and that is 14 over root 93. If A is here, 14 is opposite, and the opposite side of the triangle, adjacent, is next to. Okay, so that's pretty much already done. We just have to rationalize the denominator here, and that's going to equal same fraction times the square root of 93 on top and bottom, and that's it. And then we would check to see if 93 is a simplifiable square root, and it is not, because it's 31 times 3, and both those numbers are prime. Okay, so that's it. That's trig ratios with rationalizing your denominator. The last thing I'll say, just as you're working through these, you won't always have to simplify these, especially if you end up using the sides where you're not using the square root. So let's say, for example, I had sine A. Sine A was just 14 over 17. Okay, so don't second guess yourself if you don't end up using the square root, because there are some of those like this in here too.